When an athlete tells me that, I, as a coach, am 100% all in. I will be there all the time for them, because all I ask is just do what I ask you to do. That's it. And I will do whatever I can to bring you that next level of result.
Hello, everybody. This is Tait Fletcher, and this is Pirate Life Podcast. Back by popular demand. I didn't know anybody cared. And then everybody freaked out and they're like, hey, why aren't you doing that thing anymore? Just kidding. I got super busy. And, you know, my new thing is I want to make a priority of putting out at least 2 a week. And so here we are. Anyway, without any more goddamn excuses about that shit, I want to just get after some guys that have been sending me some great stuff, man. And I've been super excited about, man. I've been really deep onto the bone broth trip for the last few years. And lately, I just went to this this trade show type thing for all natural foods and all that kind of stuff. And there was the trouble with bone broth, vegetables and different herbs and stuff that you want to put in and season it and then put it all together and then cook it for a while. And it's time intensive, and I don't have time, man. I'm all over the place. I travel a bunch. But this guy Justin at Kettle and Fire Bone Broth, they packaged it, and they're getting it into stores, and it's fantastic, collagen rich and super nutritional. And if you don't know anything about the nutritional value of it, just just Google bone broth, and the beneficial effects of it are just fantastic, and you can't really compare it to almost anything. I've been wanting to get enough to where I just do a fast for like a week with no food, with just bone broth as my nutrients, and of course coffee. So anyway, check them out, Kettle and Fire Bone Broth. I also want to thank the Float Clinic down in Torrance, man. They are always super dope to deal with, and super great guys down there. So if you ever want an experience in a flotation tank, and if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like being in you allow yourself to get into a deep meditation and alternate reality in a super comfortable kind of space without drugs, and it's a fantastic thing meditatively, and also like for spinal decompression and for a lot of health stuff. It's really super good for you. And you can Google anything about that. Just look up flotation tanks, or you can hear Rogan talk about it ad nauseum all the time. And he's had a bunch of different guys that build them and have different excellence and expertise in that area on his podcast, and you can Google that. Bah, what else? We're opening up a Clutch Houston soon, so in Houston, Texas, you can get after that. Y'all know about Concrete Cowboy already. Dallas, Austin, Houston. Just a great night spot full of cool people, good vibes, and nice place to go relax, rage, whatever you want to do. Most beautiful women in Texas are working there, and some of the coolest dudes I've ever met, man. It's really a real great positive joint, and kind of an alternative to the regular douchey nightclubs that you end up in. Great spot. Clutch is more food oriented. We're a full restaurant and bar, and it's awesome. So check that out. Look at a lot more stuff coming from Pirate Life. We got new hats on cavemancoffee.com. The Pirate Life hats have sold out. I think that I need to put more up and get some more made, but haven't done that yet. Pirate as Fuck shirts are almost sold out, so you ought to check those out. We have great baseball tees and all that with that logo. And it's a little excessive for some people, I know, so don't be mad if you don't wear it. I send them to some people, and they're like, I got kids, motherfucker. I can't have that shirt on. And then we got these other crazy fucking people, and you goddamn people shouldn't have kids. These fucking people are out there, and they're going, when are you going to get kid sizes for the Pirate as Fuck tee? And I'm like, how about never? Like, I'm not exactly like conservative by any means, but maybe you draw the line somewhere. I don't know. Everybody's got different boundaries, I suppose. I suppose if you feed them high fructose corn syrup, it's safer to have them in the shirt. It's all your choices, whatever. Other stuff from Caveman Coffee, man, I don't have the product on the shelf yet, so I don't want to talk about it. But there's some cool goddamn things coming out. So just stay tuned for all that. What else? There's people that want to give me money on this to give their advertisements. I don't know. my thing is like, if I don't use the products and I don't dig the products, I'm probably not going to talk about it. Like the bone broth guys, they just let me try their product and I just dig it. So like I talk about it, but like, yeah, man, the route to do that. It's the same thing with athletes. Athletes are like, hey, do you ever sponsor people at Caveman Coffee or do you ever do what's the word now that's in vogue? Brand ambassadors? Are you a brand? All these nerds or any chick with tits on the internet is like, I'm a brand ambassador now, which seems like a weird thing. It's like a made up thing where whatever, but it's like, if you're down for the cause and you're like, want to be like, if you're really truly invested in your nutrition and in your health and in your fitness, and you're looking into that, and you're looking into MCTs or you're looking into ketogenic diets, I mean, that's kind of like we based our whole company on the empowerment of people and on that conversation. And so if you're without the conversation and you're not about it, like there's people that are like, oh, I've got an athlete that wants to get like if they're not into it, I don't give a shit who you are. Like I want people that are excited about the brand and excited about sustainable health and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the thing. Like if you got to ask, then you already don't know enough. Kind of deal.
A big Tait Fletcher.
Powerful Tait Fletcher is a real alpha male.
Weightlifter.
He's a stuntman.
Movie star.
Robust, enthusiastic individual.
He's huge, by the way. He's like a monster person.
One of the sweetest guys I know.
He's bigger than life.
Actor.
Entrepreneur.
A fighter.
The jiu-jitsu technician.
He's also bald and he has all these tattoos. He's just a big fucking man.
A man, a myth, a legend.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
What's up, Tait Fletcher, you bad motherfucker?
Tait Fletcher. Tait Fletcher is
Tait Fletcher.
Teddy bear motherfucking Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Tait Fletcher, everybody.
The great Tait Fletcher. Tait the animal Fletcher. Tait the savage Fletcher. Always moving. There's no stillness with Tait Fletcher. You will find no dust.
Tait Fletcher's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the word erection.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher's in the fucking house. Tait Fletcher!
Tait really blasts out some serious hardcore truth bombs, and I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Hey guys, welcome to Pirate Life Radio. It's Tait Fletcher and the great Chris Hinshaw is joining today, and we just kind of developing a talk that we'd had a few weeks ago at Training Grounds in Boston.
Yeah.
And please, without any further, we're already kind of into it, so we just pressed the button on this to go. So
Yeah, I think in Training Grounds, thanks for having me on too.
You're a fascinating dude, man.
Dude, so
it's
are
an
you.
honor. It's an honor.
I loved our conversation that we had at Training Grounds, and it's not often that you get moments of clarity in brief conversations, but the clarity that you stimulated, and it was kind of wild, right? In between workouts and training sessions, and you're
Room
here with
full
all
of
these
people.
elites. It's just,
Yeah.
it was packed, and everybody's eating and stuff. And you and I are in this, private silo, and it was just silence. all over.
Truly, it was beautiful, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so that conversation just really resonated with me, and the conversation just, for the people listening, it was one of the space that you hold for yourself, and just really, and you said something that it touched me in the sense that, am I a good man?
Right.
You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And just the fact, like,
It was a question that came to me because I'd
you.
seen Hamilton with my mom, the play, and I was looking at all these characters, and we just sat there afterwards, and it was heavy, a lot of it. And Aaron Burr thought he was a good man. George Washington thought he was a good man. The British thought they were good men. Everybody, and that question of going, we just assume that we're good men.
Right.
And then to really go, am I really? Is it for the greatest? And now I see it with voting. Right now, I look at voting and I go, people aren't voting for the greatest good; they're voting for their good, by and large.
Yeah, right.
And so it's interesting, but yeah, that's where the question came from.
well, so
anyway.
and then you went back and you asked. I think you went to a coach or a
oh right, yeah,
and you,
to Arlen Sanford.
Right, and the response back was the fact that you're asking that question.
Yeah, he just chuckled and said, "Just that you're asking it, Tait, is
right." So. Yeah, it's funny that you and I haven't even spoken since then. That was about a month ago,
Yep.
and so it sunk deep in me, and part of it was a lot of self-reflection, and it brought me back to the original time that I showed up at CrossFit, and this was about 8 years ago, and I remember vividly just watching the class before me, and
coming up on your background as a champion, like I mean,
Right.
like a not new to fitness in any kind of stretch of the imagination, like a professional,
Right.
and champion athlete.
Right, where I was not in my heart ever intimidated. I would go head to head and I had no issues at all banging it out, just because of the background I had in triathlons, right?
Yep.
So, had a lot of success, but it was also a long time prior to that. But CrossFit, and watching that class, and it was at the original, the Santa Cruz Central. Yeah, crazy. And I remember watching that class, and I was watching it while sitting in my car through the rearview mirror, right? Because I didn't want people to see me, and I was kind of observing this 9 o'clock class, and I had never picked up a barbell before, and I didn't know what they weighed, and I saw them bouncing, which surprised me, right? I thought they were made out of metal, and I didn't know. And I'd never done a pull-up before. And I was so terrified of what I saw that as much as I wanted to get healthy in that moment, the sport of triathlon really left me in a damaged state, and so much so that I just struggles in walking. I certainly would never think about running. And I drove home that day because of fear, right? And I thought about our conversation that we had at Training Grounds, and just reflecting in that moment of the space that I was holding for myself, and where did that come from, right? That fear, and it really came, and thinking about it, and diving deep, and that was part of what our conversation was, is really search, like, where is that really coming from? Was it because I never picked up a barbell before? Or is it really the space that my early childhood coaches had pushed into me, where I was inadequate, right? That I, when we were told to go for a mile jog before, PE class, and I was dead last. And it was because I was a late developer, right? I was a skinny kid. I mean, at 9 years old, I remember I weighed 50 pounds. And I was the one that was always discouraged, right? And, I remember playing baseball, it was like, oh, Hinshaw's on the team. It's like, where's the ball least going to go? Right field, we're going to put him out there.
Right.
And so part of it is the stigma that I held for myself. And luckily I had a good, my parents were fantastic, and they just kept encouraging me.
Were you able to have conversations with them about that? Like, I just don't think I'm very good, like, or
no, I just brought it inside, and so part of it
tough.
is it's an embarrassment, right? That you're dead last and you're inadequate, and so those things, for me, when I sit back and now I roll forward as a coach, and I've been really lucky enough to have a voice within the CrossFit community, I think about that, right? And can I help coaches now create a better environment so that the things that happen to me, right, that no one gets left behind, right? And how can we better program, and how can I better educate so that the community early on is established where, you know what, you have a place.
Right.
And that's the thing.
There's a huge distinction with the CrossFit Games and the athletes that you work with primarily versus CrossFit, the community also. That I think the general public that doesn't know any better doesn't know there's a distinction, and they think the one thing is synonymous with the other. And to me, they're vastly different. I mean, it's here's one space where, everybody, that if you have trouble walking, you're not super ambulatory, you're on diabetes, like, that's the place for you. That is the community to go and nurture you to wellness.
Absolutely.
And the games are a high-end freak show. It's a circus, right, in a way, where you get the top 1%ers, and they're only moving the needle a micro unit, versus you see somebody come into your gym that's 300 pounds, and they end up in a year dropping 150 pounds, and they're off diabetes and heart medicine. Now you've changed the life, which ripples into your community. And that's the thing is, I think that for any bad name that people talk about CrossFit, I'm like, I just feel like you don't know enough. You haven't explored enough of the information to know what it is really.
That's so interesting. So you're talking on that, and this goes back to what I was saying about, not leaving, and PE coaches and training kids. It's interesting, the dynamic of sport, right? That eventually 99% of the population does get left behind because they're not at the extremes, right? So if you look at my performance in the sport of triathlons, it is on the extreme. I was luckily, born with a gift from the gods, right? My lungs hold 6.2 liters of air. I've got a VO2 max back in the day of 89 milliliters per kilogram per minute. I am geared to do what I did. And that is why I continued in sport, right? And excelled. And then on the opposite extreme, you have these phenomenal speed, strength, power athletes that, we see in the Olympic Games. But what about the masses in the middle that wanted to compete in sport, but they weren't on the extremes?
So they're just unexpressed and they don't know what their limits are.
Right, and most just dropped by the weight side and they didn't make teams, they got cut, and then next thing you know, it's 30 years down the road. That is what appealed about CrossFit. Those people found a community that was for the middle. If you look at Rich Froning, and it's one thing, I commented and I said, I think Rich Froning, if you classify him, he's an everyday average athlete. He's not an extreme endurance athlete. He's never going to do well in the Ironman. He's never going to do well in a marathon. And he's never, on the opposite end, going to go to the Olympic Games for speed, strength, and power. Where is he? He's a non-specialist that wants to be great in a broad range of activities. That is the typical CrossFitter, the one that doesn't want to specialize. What do they want to do? They want to create wellness. Right. And I think that that's the thing. And, I was asked by a magazine, I said, they asked me, why are CrossFitters so fanatical? Because they found a home that accepts them for being every day, for not wanting to run, 5 days a week. That it's acceptable if you want to run 1 day a week. If you want to go to yoga 1 day a week, you're in. And we love you for that.
Yeah, go ahead and go spinning or whatever.
Whatever you want, because we're into health and wellness.
And please bring your kids, have them, or what, like all that stuff. It's a cohesive community in that way. And also, I think that something so special about it that everybody gets that sticks around with maybe any movements, but for sure I see it in martial arts and I see it in CrossFit. And there was a new girl I was working out alongside, and she was at that place pulling a deadlift. And she's above her knees, and she starts to get ropey with her body, and the hips are, and everybody is invested. Then everybody's looking, they're seeing, it looks like a convulsion almost that starts happening if you're at the top end of your max, and cheering. And she pulls it and straightens it, and it's 135 pounds or 155 pounds or something like that, right?
Giving me chills.
And we're like, oh my god! And everybody's goosebumps and cheering, and instantly she diminishes herself and she says, well, it's nothing compared to what you guys do. And I go, there's no compare here.
Right.
Comparison's the death of joy.
Yep.
And also it's like, it doesn't matter the weight, it matters the struggle. Mm-hmm. And I love, there's something about humans, I think, that we love to see people struggle and just try, whether you overcome or not. Mm-hmm. We know you're in the struggle and we know you're going to pick it up again, and that we're going to get success with it.
Yeah.
And there's something about being invested in somebody else's wellness, and it's just like in these seminars.
Yeah.
That it's like when I get invested in wanting you to do well, like we were talking about coaching yesterday a lot, and I thought, if I'm always in the conversation of I want what's very best for you, maybe you're an integral part of my business to make my business run, but if my business running isn't the best thing for you, I want you to be in that other place, wherever that is, and I want to help you find it.
Right.
Because I need you to shine as bright as you can, man.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I can't have my business suffer. I need to take care of that. That's a different issue, though. That's not the same thing at all.
Yep.
And
I agree.
I think to really get into that space is it's a beautiful thing that I can see that component all the time. And then people say, well, price-wise, about this or that. And I'm like, we got to talk about value.
Yeah. Because
that inspires my whole life. And conversations like, running into you, a virtual stranger, and then a friend that I love moments later, and that's, and I'm like, how much is inspiration worth? Can we quantify that? Because I need you to be in love with your life.
That's it. So it's interesting. So here we are, we're at Box to Business and, at NC Fit here in San Jose, California. And Jason, up there on his lectures, and you mentioned about that I am so grateful for the opportunity what Jason gave. I mean, when he called and asked back in 2012 if I'd be willing to coach him, I never ever dreamed that, I would evolve to where I am today, and certainly where he is today. I mean, it's an incredible thing. But the opportunity came because Jason, what he did is he provided encouragement. He saw something in me, a skill, an ability to resonate, confidence in him in something that he was not confident in, which was his endurance. And he gave me a platform.
You brought him comfort.
Right.
To be able to express.
And so he developed a level of confidence in something that he never felt confident in, and he recognized that had value. And then he turned around and he gave me a platform. And he said to me, he says, you know what, Chris? That's your business. You do however you want with that business. You run it the way you want, and you can use the NC or the NorCal CrossFit platform to make that happen. That was beyond generous, right? To allow me to get my start. And I never knew really why. But the reason was, and what he said to me yesterday was, because I had confidence in you from day one, because you made me feel differently, better than I have ever felt about something that I was insecure of. And that was like, wow.
What a gift. I mean, what a gift he gave you, and being able to say that back to you.
But that's what's in this community every single day, and that's what the members give to other members. And that is why people look from the outside as fanatical, but we don't. It's nothing but encouragement and
all
reward
the best
and
stuff
respect.
I've been involved in has been cults. Like, you know what I mean?
Is that true?
It's all culty. It's all like, well, these guys eat a certain way. They have a certain outfit. If you put the defining characteristics of what a cult is, it's like, whatever you look at, like jiu-jitsu is like that, or football is like that, or CrossFit is like that. Like, you just got to pick the healthiest cult. Like, what
That's a trip.
Because those are passionate people, right?
Right.
And I want to be around passion, because otherwise, I can't mail it in my life. Like, I can't just be like, well, it's good enough and whatever, and I got this job and I'm doing this thing, and I guess it's cool. I got a family. And like, I would rather eat a pistol. I don't want that.
Like, I just blew my brains out with boardom on that.
Exactly.
Right? I'm dying there.
You know what I think is interesting too, if you reverse engineer it back before meeting Jason for you, like where you're like, my life is in a place I wouldn't have ever dreamed of. I wouldn't have been able to orchestrate where I am. It never even occurred to me.
Yeah.
Me too.
Really?
And I think Jason too. And a lot of people too. And I think the thread through that is I'm just doing what I love. And so you're just, you're a triathlete. Like, I put all of my 100% commitment into being a triathlete. Yeah. So I know what that is. I know what it takes. And I know what commitment and discipline mean. And then that runs a road. And then other things happen. But that's a huge skill set that it's easy to look down upon and go, oh, well, do you have an accounting degree or a doctoral or this or that? It's like, and you look at the hours that you put in to be great at something. It's more than a PhD. Yeah. And that's transferable
you're
value.
So good. Yeah, you're good,
it's
man.
interesting like that.
No, that's very interesting.
When people are looking and they go, how do you do? I'm like, you got to fall in love with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do that thing with zest, man. Yeah,
and it's funny that you say that. So there's a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, and what makes it unique is that CrossFit, it's doing things that have never been done before, right? And we're seeing, they're not anomalies, they're patterns. And
for example,
I mean,
because right away I would go, people always did pull-ups though. They always ran. They did periodized training.
But take, for example, would you get stronger by running?
Right. And
we are seeing at the highest level, every single athlete that I coach by running, they're getting stronger. I will spend 8 hours and I will run down a rabbit hole looking into research and data and all of that. And I don't do it because it's a chore. I do it because it's passion. It takes me to one place to the next. And then I have this, at the end of an 8-hour day, a network of just like, sometimes it ends up with nothingness because there's no information out there covering those patterns. Yeah. And so, when you mention about like that surprise of being where I am today, it's surprise only because it was such a pleasure that I never really thought about time. Mm-hmm. Right? So things that I love.
Because you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Because you don't get better tomorrow. you got to do the moment, and if I'm committed to the moment, tomorrow takes care of itself.
And if you're not open-minded in CrossFit, you're not going to see these patterns, right? You're going to just go the traditional way, and you're going to say, if you want to get strong, don't run. And
well, because that was the old paradigm, right? Is that running or endurance of any kind isn't going to make you stronger, but if you do weightlifting, you'll be able to. That's transferable to running or weightlifting or to rowing or running or swimming.
Right. So it may be that the reason why CrossFitters, which represents the middle population, right? They're not on the extremes in terms of endurance or speed, strength, and power. They're more in the middle, meaning they have a more balanced ratio of slow twitch fibers and fast twitch fibers. And so if you are a weightlifter where the dominant fiber that you have in your body is fast twitch, maybe that for those studies that were all done back, that hold true. But that's what makes CrossFitters so unique, is that maybe by running for the 99% of the population, if you want to get stronger, that relationship of fast and slow twitch fibers is what can trigger that benefit.
Interesting.
Right? So it's the same thing like on runners, right? Elite runners and specialists. CrossFitters are not specialists, right? I have people, and the most they'll ever commit to 2 days a week.
Correct.
So the question is how do I create performance from somebody who doesn't want to specialize? How do you do it? And the first thing that you really need to do is you have to assess them. And how do you assess a non-specialist? It's never been done before. All the assessments and everything that are out there today are on the specialist, right? So let's just say you wanted to run 2 days a week. You got to unfortunately go to the running community that's running, 40 miles a week. Well, should I judge my coaching protocols based upon someone who is a pure and solely and exclusive just runner to train you? And that is what makes what CrossFit is doing so unique, is that it is catering to the person that wants to do a wide range, right? They don't want to just one specific sport.
And to further that, if I did the one specific, it would take away from the other things that I need to be super adequate at.
Yep, that's correct. And that's what I find so incredible about what CrossFit has identified, is that, one, it created a sport for the people that got left behind, right? The masses of people that are not on the extremes. And number two, what it has done is by creating that sport, we're seeing a huge percentage of the population doing what are looked upon as anomalies. Things that shouldn't have been done, but it's happening, and we see it over and over and over again. What is fantastic about the next prong is looking at people's time. We're creating a level of wellness through the relationships of all of these other movements that's never been documented or recorded.
Right.
And that is that next step. And that part, that's what's exciting. I mean, the fact that I could have a games athlete like Rich Froning improve, after winning the CrossFit Games 4 times, improve his mile time in a year by 40 seconds. How is that possible?
It's
right?
Amazing, right? And especially how is it possible? I mean, when you put it in the perspective of that's one of those top end athletes who's not moving the needle a lot on his improvements.
Right. So imagine
that's a huge improvement.
Well, so imagine now the non-Rich Fronings, which represents 99% of CrossFit.
You've cut 3 minutes off my time running.
There you go, boom. And that's what's happening. And by running 2 times a week, because of the relationship between all the other movements that they're doing in their CrossFit class, they apply a small amount of specific training on running 1 to 2 times a week, and you're seeing these dramatic improvements.
Yeah.
And so
I love listening to Carl Paoli talk, because he talks about these relationships and the relatedness of them, of all these movements in such a beautiful way. I mean, he's a real, he's a specialist in the beauty and function of the body and in movement. And it's amazing when you hear a guy that knows material like that so beautifully, and he articulates things in a way that is so accessible to a guy like me, and I get blown away, man. He's I mean, and that's the other thing too, is there's so many gifts that are brought to us. He's cleaning up whale shit at SeaWorld or whatever, when he didn't make the Olympics, and then he's living in San Francisco, and he's like, what am I going to do? And da-da-da. And he'd kind of put all that away, and then he's like, you know what? I did love gymnastics. Maybe I'll go back and I'll start coaching at the YMCA or whatever it was again. And it's all that stuff. It's like the passion and the love of it. That's what I love, is it ignites the love of things that you thought were like yesterday's news. And you're like, no, that all had a tremendous amount of value, and let's all get together. And now it makes it even more valuable the more of us that are connected about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's known. The games athletes that I coach, matter of fact, for the first 3 years in CrossFit, I never made one penny.
Right.
It was just truly for passion and to.
It's the same with MMA coaches. They're unsung heroes.
Well, and to pay it back. I mean, CrossFit gave me my health back, and there's no bigger gift than health. And how could I ever possibly repay that? I mean, it's a debt that it will. I don't even know how to pay it.
Yeah.
And so, if I can contribute in some way to create better wellness in the population within CrossFit, I'll do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, thousands of athletes. But the benefit of that, of course, is by coaching a lot of people.
Right.
I see patterns, and I see how to drive efficiencies in the most, economical time, right, period, right? And that's where I really am focusing my time, how to maximize adaptation in the most economical way.
I want to, every time I run, I feel like I was talking to Jason earlier, and he's like, yeah, like that run that when I passed out and I
that's a great video,
and all that, and then he said Dave comes over and he's like, hey, so if you want to win it all, if you want to do this, you're going to need to get up and go. You have to finish this run or you're out. Not, hey, how are you? How's your head? Like, just like cut and dry. If you want to function here, you better move. And I thought that was huge. And he says, and so like you talk to yourself and you're like, your legs hurt, but you're going to go through this and you're going to get good breaths and have a nice stride and have a regular cadence. And I thought, I never think my legs hurt. I always think, that could be a tumor growing in my side or something. Or I get so uncomfortable running. And so since I saw you in Boston, I was like, I need to get with Chris at some point and go, hey, will you just help a little bit? Like, how can I do this? And because that's the thing, is like to get these things to become a joy, or maybe not a joy, but at least a tool that you feel comfortable to pull out off the tool belt and go, Thursday I'm going to use this tool. And because a lot of us don't have that for whatever reason. If you get into certain dysfunctions, then you're just used to the dysfunction.
Right.
And you never get out of that rut.
Yeah, but I think that, so it's interesting. I personally find running an incredible struggle.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't just get out there and just go, oh, this is great. No. I got to take it in pieces.
How tough they are.
It's rough.
Because I'm like, all I think about is the mental anguish. I'm like, you have to be so mentally disciplined and tough to do that. Like that. To do that for an hour, those guys that go and they run, like,
it's awful. But
it's amazing.
But imagine these. So when I was racing, you'd be sitting here, and let's just say we're having a conversation. Okay. I go, I got to go to the track today. I got, it's a track day, and you'd say, well, what was the workout? And it wouldn't be uncommon to do 10 by 1 mile repeats, right? Now, that was awful back then. And there is no possible way that you can bite that off. You've got to take it in steps. So your first step is, look, I'm just going to go to the track and I'm going to see how I feel. If I don't feel good, I'm out. I'm going to then walk one lap around the track. If that doesn't feel good, I'm out. And you have to take it in small pieces.
Funny. I did the same thing in CrossFit classes.
No way.
When I wasn't feeling, I'm like, it's all about barrier to entry.
Yeah, that's right? What it is.
And how do you get out of the way? Yeah. I go, okay, I'm going to walk in. Or even when I was in jiu-jitsu, I would be like, well, I'm sick. And I knew that once I created a habit of not going, that was going to be, I didn't want to buy my future self problems, right?
Yep.
And so I go, no matter what, if I'm not contagious, if I have a broken foot or if I have whatever, I'm going to go and I'm going to watch. And I would hate it. I would seethe because I'm not on the mats. But that hatred inside was like kind of good. It burned me, and I had an eagerness, and I feel like I healed quicker probably. But also the barrier to entry in CrossFit classes, and I go, okay, Because the first thing to get anybody out of the way, to get my mom or my aunt out of the way to come in the door, that's the thing. That's the first thing. Please just open the door.
Right.
And then the next thing I go, okay, today I'll go through the warm-up. Because I need to stretch out and stuff, and I'll get warmed up. I'll do the warm-up. And then, it's okay, so it's a 5-round. I'm not going to do 5 rounds of that. I'll do the first round, and I'll see how I feel. But that's exactly what you're talking about, man.
Take it off in pieces. And it's the exact same thing. And so like when Jason started his running, he really genuinely struggled. You know, it's funny, Jason says that he weighs 240
pounds or whatever.
But his fighting weight is 205, right? But he's always at 240.
Right.
Right.
He's
and you look at it,
big, thick guy.
Right. And so part of it is you can understand that, right?
Sure.
I think that's where the coach needs to be creative. We all recognize that, like taking running, it's not easy for people, right? And be sensitive to that. So create programming that kind of tricks them into doing what you want to do. And simple things such as, like, for example, like if you don't like running, what is the one movement if you go into a gym that you love? I mean, what is it?
Right, like jump roping or deadlifting or...
Deadlifting. Okay, so let's just take deadlifting, right? So let's just say that you do deadlifting into some double unders, and then what I do is I turn around and I say, okay, you know what, Dave, what I want you to do is, for in between rounds, I'm not going to let you sit around, but you're going to get to go out, and I want you to run 200 meters, and you run it however you want to run, but it must be slow. It's a recovery. And so you do your first round, and I see you go out for your 200-meter run, and I turn to you and I go, slow down. You are going too fast. And what I do is I take the edge off as a coach.
Nobody's ever told me that before.
But here's the thing.
I see what you mean,
But
though.
what do I want out of this deal?
Right.
All I want is I want you to go out and put time on your feet. You now are going to have to work extremely hard in your double unders and your deadlifts, which you're happy with because it's your favorite. But what you find in this workout to be your favorite is that super slow, and you're going to drag it out because coach said I could, as long as I could. So if you're 200, instead of taking a minute and you turn it into 3 minutes, now I got you to run for 3 minutes.
And then you congratulate me.
Of course.
And then it's savory for me instead of being this,
Right, and you did exactly what I wanted. I turn around and let's just say you did a workout that had 10 rounds. You ran 2,000 meters, but more importantly, you spent 30 minutes running.
Right.
And you didn't even know it.
Right.
And so part of it is coaches, they need to recognize that there's resistance in certain movements. There's resistance in certain things. There's issues from their childhood that are surfacing today. And how can we as coaches program to work around those things to build confidence? Because that's, at the end of the day, I am in the business, really, of building confidence.
Yeah.
Like, you listen to Jason now, talk about his endurance. That is not the Jason that we started with.
Right.
No, that was a broken...
It's an amazing thing how those are conflated, too. Our real wellness psychologically and athleticism in that way. There was a girl I was coaching, it was years ago now, but... and she was losing weight and she was feeling better, and then she broke down. It was an early morning class, and it was just her and I in class, and she says, I'm worried and I'm scared, and she started crying, and I go, what? And it was the first time somebody had broken down in class, and that happens sometimes, right?
Yep.
And I go, so what's going on? And we just sat and stopped, and she said, I don't want to lose any more weight, because it's been a barrier and a protection for me since stuff happened to me when I was a kid. Dude, and I'm like, and I'm in tears with her, holding her hand, and it's an amazingly healing but needs to be super safe, which brings me to the other thing about a lot of times we're like, yeah, it's a running day, we're going to do a 5K, suck it up, and there's there's almost a comedic heartlessness that goes with it, and what you're saying, it just really gives me the opportunity to reflect on my own behavior as like, who do you want to be for somebody? How are you taking a stand for somebody to succeed?
Right, so imagine the person the class, they come in and they see it's a 5K for time, and they're not good at running.
Right.
So now you're going to go head-to-head against me, and I'm going to beat you by 20 minutes.
Right.
I don't understand. Because part of, we're trying to create physical wellness, but we also are trying to create a mental and emotional wellness.
If I don't want to come back tomorrow, there's no physical wellness for me.
Right. And so part of it is that, you know what, I must create a program. If I want to cover 5,000 meters in a workout, and that's the workout of the day, then I must create an environment that the entire population showing up is leaving feeling the same level of confidence. And how am I going to do that?
So how because like in a regular class, what we would do is say you're doing Fran or whatever, go, I need everybody to finish under 7 minutes.
That's right.
And so if that means you're using a 45-pound bar, that's what that means then, or whatever it is, right? Yep. And so how do you do that with running?
So what you would do is something based upon time. So what you're telling people is all right, hey, here's the deal. I want you to run 60 seconds out, and I want you to run 60 seconds back. It may be 2 minutes out, 2 minutes back. And what you're telling people is that in that 2 minutes out and 2 minutes back, you're going to now come back into the gym, and I am going to expect you, without looking at your watch, because I'm going to tell you, you're going to run out, a certain time domain. I want to make sure that you're hitting the same exact distance each time. So for me, I may run for a 2 minute time domain. Let's say I run 500 meters. You may run for a 2 minute time domain, 200 meters, but the intensity is the same. Right. How is our performance judged? Did you hit 200 meters within your 2 minute time domain, and did I hit 500? Right. So I did a workout the other day. I happened to be in Athens, Greece, and we did a...
So awesome. I just happened to be in Athens, Greece. It's so great.
It was crazy. So I just can't even believe my life. I was super exhausted, but it was a wonderful time. And I had these people run 60 seconds out, and I gave them a specific distance to hit. And there was a guy there that had a mile time of a 4:45. So he was running 60 seconds, and I honestly have no idea how far he went, because the only thing I was interested in is when he stopped at 60 seconds, he took 10 seconds of rest, and then he ran back to the original starting line. If you run 60 seconds out and pace properly, you'll run 60 seconds back and hit the same start-finish line. Well, he was never hitting it. That's all I worried about. Now, the other person, there was another woman that was there, and she was running in 60 seconds, about 120 meters. It was a walk-jog type pace. But I'll tell you what, she ran 60 seconds out and hit 120 meters, and you know what she ran coming back in her 60 seconds? Exactly 120. Who on that day was I more impressed by? Right. The person that ran 120 meters, not the one that ran 500 meters.
And so the guy running is burning it on the way out, and then he just can't keep that pace for the way back.
Right.
So he doesn't know pacing.
That's correct. And that was a workout that was pacing based, and so that was the focus. But in reality, I was having them run for a specific time domain. So I distracted them from the movement of running, and they focused on pace, but I created equality between the fast and the slow.
What do you think about postural running? I mean, like one of my guys, his lower back seizes up when he runs over 400 meters, probably. Like it's very difficult for him. And then it seizes up and cramps to where, and he is a young, fit guy. Mm-hmm. And so that's like a postural imbalance of some kind in your hips or something like that?
Right. I mean, that would be an athlete that you would definitely need to take a look at. But I find that CrossFitters, the mistake that's made is that if they're only going to run one time per week, they just jump right in. And they don't build their structure. Their structure is not ready yet for that pounding. And so even though you're looking at a 3 mile effort, the reality is that that's a little bit too much too soon. And so I always tell people, it's like, enjoy the fact that you're out of running condition, right? So go out and walk and then jog, and then slowly build up your jogging.
I feel like maybe we disrespect it because we think, well, we're on our feet all the time and we've ran since we were kids, and so we don't need a warm up for it. We don't need X, Y, like that. What you're saying makes a lot of sense.
It's only 3 miles.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, what happens? They've got an Achilles issue. Right, and so part of it is enjoy the lack of fitness that you have in that particular movement, and build your structure, right? Yeah. And so it's funny that Yeah, I mean, a lot of the athletes, that's what they think. It's like, oh, I could just go out and hit it. And a lot of them, I don't need a warm-up, for example. Jason Khalipa never warmed up until I met him, ever.
I was impressed with Lucas Parker.
Oh,
The extensive warm-up. People are like, what's he like? And I go,
someone
he warms up for 45 minutes, and then he works out for 12 minutes.
There's kind of a warm-up to a warm-up.
And then he eats. And then he warms up again. He warms up all day long, basically.
And it's not just a small warm-up.
No, it's and stuff I'd never seen.
No,
I mean, he's on the bike and he's rowing the Airdyne, and then he has another hand straight out in front of him, and he comes back and touches. It's like he's doing a sobriety test with one hand, kind of, or something like that, or like little micro motions. And I'm like, I don't even know what he's doing, but he does for sure. And I'm like, he's like a savant of some kind.
I really love Lucas Parker. I love talking to him. I love just his methodology and just what's in his mind. Right? He is genuinely thinking. Some of the things may be skewed in a direction that I don't understand, but I love the fact that he is thinking and he is trying to find a better way. Anybody that you come into in CrossFit that says they've got it figured out, I mean, so Chris Beeler and Matt Chan told me this when I went to their competitors course, and they said they don't. It's too new of a sport, and I love what Lucas does. He is out there working the fringes to become better.
And he's always asking questions.
Oh my God, it's nonstop.
I mean, when I talked to him, the thing that was super prevalent that I noticed that doesn't come up in conversation a lot, I would assert something, and he would say, and maybe he would say something and respond, and then maybe a sentence or two later he would say, well, I don't know if we could say that that's true. And he would, because he's reflecting on all of it, and he's like, this is also true, and it's a really interesting way. He thinks out loud in that way and shows you why he's believing it the way he is, and it's super. I mean, it's eye-opening, mind-opening, really, for me.
I really admire that, and you know, I run into a lot of top-level athletes within CrossFit, and I love talking to them to just learn what their background and their perspective of things are, and you know, one of the things that always troubles me is when somebody that has a decent background in cardiorespiratory endurance says, I don't need to run, I'm good enough. And inside me, that is a naive answer, because they're not understanding what development of the largest muscle group from a cardiorespiratory adaptation standpoint has on the body's overall work capacity. So now I sit in there and I listen to this person that says, I don't need to do that. Do I just cross their name off the list and go, meh, and then move on? Or do I educate them? And what I find about Lucas Parker is that he, on every level, is receptive to learning, because he may find a space for what you say in his arsenal of knowledge. Yeah. And that is a great athlete. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, no matter what, speaking with Jason earlier, and he said, you know, if you got 10 friends and 8 of them are doing great and 2 of them are struggling with this or that, like, you know, the 8 are to help and bring the other 2 up. And I think absolutely 100%, except if one of those is going, no, I like doing it this way, and you're like, no, you're fucking up your whole life. Like it's that's not good what you're doing. And so if somebody doesn't want that performance or function in their life, I go, cool, but I can't. Like that's an anchor in a way, and you got to move on, and because you got to help the ones that are in front of you in a certain way, that are willing, right? And Lucas is signed up for that.
Well, it's like you just said. You know that what you just said, it's going to lead to an argument,
right?
And so it's like,
oh, you already know. Cool, got it.
And that's easier.
Yep.
And they leave and like they feel like they're in the good, and it's peaceful and often moving. I think that the thing that is, there's the dominant share of the athletes today, and that's what I admire about Jason Khalipa. When he, you know, on that first phone call when he asked me to coach him, and he just told me, you know, I will do everything you ask of me, and I will never question you. That to me was one of the nicest things that anybody's ever said to me. And to this day, he never, ever has. And that's why he had the success that he did.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And that's an athlete that listened before, because those words didn't just come to him.
No.
That came from a heartbreak earlier.
Yeah.
Going, oh, you don't want to listen? Cool. And he, like, that's a reparation that he's made within his own character, and going, okay, what a coach needs to hear, like, why would he waste his time? Oh, I'm going to do everything. Like, that's what you want. Like, cool. Like, if you're willing to do what I've done to get where I am, I can help you. If you want magic, I don't have any of that.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean, to me, that was like the you know, in that call, it was like the fourth sentence that he said, and I, to this day, you know, that's what resonates. When an athlete tells me that, I, as a coach, am 100% all in.
For sure.
I will be there all the time for them, because all I ask is just do what I ask you to do. That's it. And I will do whatever I can to bring you that next level of result.
Yep.
And Jason did that on day one.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's the attitude of life that is so helpful to go out with is, you know, what do you do? I'll do what it takes.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. And it's kind of like what you're suggesting is like, it's like with diet or with whatever. It's like, if I'm going to, I'll do what Rob Wolf says 5 days of the week, but on those other 2 days, I'm going to go to Wendy's or whatever. Like, you're not going to ever get the result that Rob's talking about. Right. And so that whole thing about, like, if you want to really change, you know, a guy told me one time, he goes, you want a new life? And I go, I got to have one desperately. Yeah. I need a new life. And he says, you know what the price is? You know what it costs? And I go, what? He goes, your old life. All of it. That's you know, and
so you're so
give up your old ideas, you know, and like, if I'm going to come into this new thing with old ideas, I'm for sure going to be stuck in old patterns. If I want new patterns, I need to come fresh. And I try to do that in my morning meditations and to get up and go, I need to be new again today. I need to be like reborn, refreshed in the morning, so that I can go out and I can access what life has to offer me, instead of thinking that I know what needs to happen in a way, you know?
Yeah.
And which is not to say that I don't want to be responsible and direct my day in certain ways, but, you know, because I'll close off and I'll callous my own soul so easily to all the hurt and all the stuff that's in the world anyway, and, you know, you kind of deflect things, and I don't want to live that way, man. I don't want to live in a shell. And I'd rather live raw and feel the lumps and do all that and learn and grow, because the beauty of it and the connection with people, and you go, wow, there's all this power and kindness and growth and open-mindedness. And when you band together with that, what can hurt you?
Right.
You know, you are insulated with love. Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I find so fantastic about the CrossFit community, is that love that you are explaining. Just show up, and I got you.
Yep.
I got you.
Yep.
I will.
That's
I
the
will
beauty
get
of
you
a coach, right?
Yeah.
Is that, like, you get the barrier to entry out of the door.
Yeah.
That's the athlete's job. Walk in the door, and then please come in, and you're right in my arms.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. And that's the beautiful thing. Just walk in the door.
Yep. And I think that level of comfort and safety and security within that space, and you have this community that is keeping an eye on you, is what makes it so wonderful.
It's vital.
Yeah. No, I love your words, man. I really do.
Man, it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, brother.
Where can guys find you?
So I have a website. It's aerobiccapacity.com, and I provide 4 different running workouts on there every week for free, and there's a row workout, a bike workout, and a swim workout. I love programming workouts. At the end of the day, it's all about programming, and there's no greater treat for me when someone does one of my workouts and they look at it and then they do it and they're like, boy, I never saw that coming.
And then they think about why you do it. And that's what, when I met you, I was like, I bet he goes back to his hotel room and he's just writing out stuff, scribbling, reworking it. I'm like, I can see what the rest of your life is like where I'm not seeing you.
You should see my notebook in this seminar here. It's just filled with workouts.
Awesome, man. They find you on Instagram too?
Yeah. So the aerobic capacity Instagram is one. It's just aerobic capacity, all one word. And then it's Hinshaw 363. 363 are my birth date years.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
awesome.
Cool, man.
Man, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
And I've got to run to the airport.
Yeah,
but
I know you do. Dude, so good, man.
It's great. And I mean, being in San Jose too, it's like being in Boston, walking into training grounds, and Connor and Jen and all those guys that were there, and I was just like, this feels homey. You know, and it's just, everybody's so warm. And then the same thing with San Jose. I'm like, meet all these great people. And then a guy that used to fight in the UFC also, and he's working in town. I met him last night, and we'd just been fans of each other over Twitter and stuff for years. And we got to go hug it out with him. And And it's a really interesting thing, man. And I look forward to coming back to San Jose.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I mean, it is incredible that you walk into a space like this and you're immediately at home, and it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
And that's what's so incredible about this community is that even, like Pat Barber walked in here earlier.
So great, right?
And he went, I was up in Redwood City, and here China Cho's in the gym, Camille's in the gym. Pat Barber walks in, and it's like, but they're all there working out with the other members.
It's amazing.
It was just fantastic. Yeah, no.
That's the beauty too about those old school like elite athletes. They're like, I don't need a pro class or something. I'm in here doing my own thing, and they're doing their thing. Like, we're all together. Like, it's that, there's a real sense of togetherness.
Yep. I love it.
Love you. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, man.